I'm your host, Barbara Karpuzian, and you're watching the Everlasting Love program. This year, the Chicago Bulls had the #1 spot for the NBA draft pick. Today on our program, we have two former Chicago Bulls players who will share their life story with us about love and basketball, victory and defeat. Hear how these players had a game plan on and off the court and how in Christ they are champs. You'll want to stay tuned.
Mistakes and often slip, just common flesh and bones. But I'll prove someday just why I say I'm of a special kind. When he was on on his mind. The look of love was on his face. Thorns were on his head. The blood was on that scarlet robe. Stained crimson red, though his eyes were on the ground that day, he looked ahead in time. When he was on the cross, I was on. He knew me, yet he loved me. He whose glory makes the heavens shine. So on his mind. Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? my portion, my constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. Yes, I sing because I'm free. For His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Let not your heart be troubled. His tender words I hear, and resting on His goodness, I lose my doubts and fears. I draw Thee closer to from where He sets me free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. Yes, I sing because I'm free. For His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know He watches
I hope you enjoyed the selection by Cindy and Leroy Graham. We're always glad to be able to bring this program to you because we want you to know that God loves you with an everlasting love. It doesn't matter what situations you may have encountered in your life, where you've been, where you are now. It doesn't matter how deep of a pit you might feel like you're in. God's willing to reach down and to draw you to Himself. His word says, if you seek me, you'll find me if you search for me with all of your heart. Take an opportunity to call upon the name of Jesus because He wants to touch your life. During the course of the program, you'll see a number flash up on the screen, 773 286-2172. Also our website, www.everlastinglovetv.com. We would absolutely love to hear from you. If there's something on the show that you have a question about, if you're looking for a good church or a Bible study, if you simply need prayer, give us a call, drop us a line, and we will certainly get back with you. Well, I am really excited and privileged to be sitting among some great men today, not just some great basketball players, but some great men of God. And I just want to welcome my two guests to the show. With me is Bob Love.
Thank you, Barbara.
A man who played basketball for the Chicago Bulls for 8 seasons. And Dickey Simpkins, another amazing guy who played basketball with Michael Jordan and was a great rebounder and played for 6 years in Europe. And so welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, hey, today I understand was the NBA draft. And so what was that like? You want to tell us a little bit?
Well, I was at the pre-draft deal that would follow the fans and ESPN radio and all that stuff.
Okay.
And they drafted Derrick Rose out of Memphis.
Okay.
And the young man is projected to be one of the best point guards to come out of college in the last decade. If everything goes as expected, this draft could be the most important draft since 1984 when we drafted Michael Jordan.
Wow.
So we're really expecting lots from this young man. He's only 19 years old.
Okay.
But I hope that he has a second force in his life because everything is not going to go. Everything's not going to go well all the time. Sometimes you're going to have some ups, and sometimes you're going to have some downs. You gotta have something in your background that you can fall back on, something to give you strength and courage.
Okay. Can you share a little bit of what you mean by that, Bob?
Absolutely, absolutely. I played 12 years in the NBA. I had a great career, and most people knew me as a great basketball player, but very few people knew me outside of sports because I was never interviewed on radio or TV. I received no speaking engagements. Played here for eight and a half years, and played in over 500 games for the Bulls, I believe. In 85, 90% of those games, I was either the leading scorer, the leading rebounder, or the leading assist guy. But not one time did they vote me the star of the game. Not one time was I ever interviewed on radio or TV after the game, because all of my life I was a man that stuttered, and people laughed at me. They told me I would never do this and I would never do that. But every time someone told me I couldn't do something, I would get on my knees and I would pray to the Lord. You know, I didn't pray for love. I didn't pray for money. Didn't pray for fame. All I wanted to do was speak. And I had to go through some ups and downs in my life, some tough times and stuff. And the only way that I made it was that every time something went wrong, I got down on my knees and I prayed to the Lord to give me strength and give me courage to go on. And I never looked back.
Bob, what was it like for you growing up as a child?
As a child, it was pretty tough. It was, but I had a lot of love. I had a loving grandmother, grandfather, a lot of aunts and uncles. I was one of 14 kids living in a 2-bedroom house. In that house, we only had 3 beds for those 14 people. And when nighttime came, well, you should have seen us scrambling for spots in those beds. We were sleeping up and down across and under the bed. And I spent a lot of time on the floor, sleeping on a little pallet on the floor. But I never complained and stuff, because everybody around us was poor. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have food, but everyone worked in the cotton fields. We chopped cotton, we picked cotton, and we shared. So we really didn't know that we were poor. But I was really lucky. I had a loving grandmother who Every Sunday morning, I had to go to church. Went to Sunday school, then I went to mid-morning service, and then I had to go back that night. Every Sunday, kept me out of trouble, kept my mind on good things and stuff. You know, and that instilled a belief in me. And I really thank my grandmother to this day for doing it, because as I go around the country, speak at a lot of prisons. Matter of fact, about a month ago, I was over at Cook County Jail there, and I spoke to 1,000 inmates.
Wow.
And the average age, the oldest one there was 23 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And out of that 1,900 of them looked just like me, just like me. And I asked them this question. I always ask this question. So, young man, I said, did you guys ever go to church when you were young? Do you ever get down on your knees in prayer at night? And unanimously, everyone answered, no and never. No and never. You know, you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the fame in the world, Barbara, but that can be taken away in one wisp.
Yes.
The one thing that cannot be taken away is your belief in the Lord. If you got that, you know, in your background, you can overcome any hurdles in life, and I'm a true believer in that.
Yes. So you got down on your knees and you would pray to the Lord.
And prayed. I didn't pray for love. I didn't pray for money. Didn't pray for fame. All I wanted to do was speak and stuff. Even though I couldn't talk during those days, all of my friends laughed at me when I was a little boy. They told me I would never finish high school. I would never go to college. I would never do this. I would never do that. But as I said, every time they told me I couldn't do something, that only made me stronger.
Yes.
Got down on my knees and prayed each and every night.
Yeah.
And after all those years of not being able to say one single word, and people laughing at you and telling you can't do this, you can't do that, you know what I do for a living now? I talk.
Isn't that is so God.
Go all around the world. Go all around the world.
Wow.
So, you know, I wouldn't trade my life for nobody's life in the world.
Yes.
You know, so I just I had something to hold on to. I had something, you know, I had something to get on my knees and be thankful for every night, rather than, oh, let me count my money here, let me see how many stocks and bonds I got. You know, I had none of that. I had none of that. But I had I had a good soul. I had a good. I'm a good person, and just, you know, I just feel great about what I've accomplished in my life.
Bob, let me just ask you this, and then I can have Dickey share a little bit about his life. But when you talk about getting on your knees and praying, I think a lot of people can get a visual picture of what that is. You know, we get on our knees and we pray to the Lord. And what does it really mean to have a relationship with Christ? Because there are going to be a lot of young people that are going to be watching this. People of all ages watch this, and they hear, you know, will you pray? And what does that really mean?
Well, what it means to me is that I never have to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, I live for today. I live for today, and I do good things each and every day, and I just ask the Lord to, you know, to watch over me, to guide me and my family each and every day. Gonna get knocked down. We're gonna get knocked down in our lifetime a lot of times. I've been knocked down a bunch of times, but it's really not how many times you get knocked down. It's whether or not you can get up.
Get back up. Yes.
I remember my last in league. I was married at the time. The doctor told me I had to have a second operation on my back. Except I was scared to death. And stuff. I went in for a dunk shot. I had a guy run up my legs, fell on my back when I got hurt really, really bad. But I had to have the operation. I had it. And one night the doctor came into my room. The doctor said, "Bob, you're never going to walk right again, son. You're always going to have to walk with a cane and a crutch." You know, I was devastated. devastated. But I closed my eyes. And asked the Lord to give me strength and courage. About a half a year later, I was home. Got off the bus, and I walked to my apartment where I was living at. Walked into my house, and everything I owned was gone. My money, car, furniture, trophies, all-star rings, every materialistic thing I owned was gone. Looked on the floor, saw a note from my wife, picked it up. And the note basically said that she didn't want to be married to a guy that couldn't talk, and she definitely didn't want to be married to a guy that was going to be crippled the rest of his life. And let me tell you, that was the most hurting feeling I had ever had in my life. I got scared. All kind of thoughts were running through my mind, but I had one thing in my favor. I got on my knees, I closed my eyes as tight as I could close them. Asked the Lord once again to give me strength, to give me courage to go on. The next morning, woke up, put my cane in the corner, and put my crutch over by the door. Then started walking. First day I walked about a mile. I came back, I felt okay. Next day did the same thing, and after about a month, I was able to walk downtown. I went to a company called Nordstrom's in Washington. Asked for a job, Seattle, Washington. Rather. Asked for a job. They said, "Sure, we'll give you a job, son, but you got to start off at the bottom." And Barbara, despite the fact that I had a college education, accomplished everything in the world of sports that could be accomplished, 3-time All-American college, All-Star, All-Pro, I had done it all, but I couldn't talk. I had to start off washing dishes and bussing tables for $4.45 an hour.
Oh my goodness.
Let me tell you, it was some of the most embarrassing,
Humbling experience.
humiliating days, weeks and months of my life. A lot of time, a lot of people bring their kids to the restaurant. Boy, they see me in their little white pants with ketchup and mustard stain on them, ketchup stains on my white shirt there. Could always hear them whispering about me. "Wow, man, it's Bob Law, man. Used to be a great player. Look at him. What happened to him? What a shame." But I was so strong, Barbara, in my belief that if I kept going and never looked back, the Lord was going to help me change things and stuff. And those people that were looking at me and whispering and stuff, those were the same people I would walk over to, shake their hand, "How you doing? Is everything okay?" Finally, one of the owners noticed of the great job I was doing, because I worked that job 6 straight months, didn't take a day off. Every time water was spilled on the floor, I was the first person to grab the mop the floor. Food was on those tables, I was the first person that wiped those tables up. They called me over to that table one morning and they said, "Bob, we noticed you've been doing a great job, son. But we still can't promote you until you do something about your speech problem. But if you're willing to take the time out to do it, we'll pay for it." And let me tell you, when they told me that, the weight of the words just dropped off of my shoulders.
They said they would pay for it.
Yeah, they would pay for my therapy.
Oh, man.
And for the first time in my life, I felt that someone cared about me as a person. Began therapy some years ago, and as you can see now, I progressed to the point where I can go all across the country, speak to large groups, small groups. Out of all of the athletes now in the country that do motivational speaking, I'm ranked number 5. And none of those guys had anything wrong with them. They spoke perfect English, but they had a great life. But I had the Lord on my side and stuff, and I had belief. I never wavered, never wavered. I didn't ask for nothing. I just wanted to speak.
Wow. Bob, this is compelling. I'm like pushing back in my chair because it's really compelling, and there's something so awesome inside of you, such an amazing treasure inside of you, and a tenacity that there's so many out there that need to hear that, because I think there are so many complacent people out there, folks that just give up so quickly, folks that complain. I mean, listening to your story.
But they play the victim. They play the victim in life, and you can never do that.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's amazing. And I'm trying to get over to Dickey here, and we got a lot of time. We got a lot of time on the
We got a lot of
show.
time.
I'm just like,
You know, I
yeah.
don't think Dickey knew this.
No,
so
I've known Bob Love for a while now, and this is my first time being able to really hear the story, and
What are you
not from other
feeling?
people's mouths, but hear from him.
Yeah, what are
I'm sitting here listening to him, staring at him, amazed at all the things that he went through, and the biggest thing is he had God on his side.
Yeah.
And all the challenges that occurred throughout his path to where he is now. And it's just amazing listening to a pioneer of the NBA,
Yes.
and just a pioneer of life and accomplishments, and all because of being blessed by the Lord.
Yes, yeah. But you said something too that's so important. You said that I didn't waver, and I just
waver.
always had this belief. And look at that simple faith.
Absolutely.
Simple faith that got you to the place, where you are.
Yeah.
I think that's incredible.
Yeah, Barbara. You know, I know a lot of people who can recite in the Bible passage after passage after passage, but after they get through reciting that passage, can they live that life?
Yeah.
Can they
Yes.
Can they do what that passage said?
Yes.
Said and stuff. And what I did what those passages say. I didn't go around saying chapter 13 said this.
Sure.
But then one thing that my grandmother always told us, she said, Robert Earl's son, she said, now be careful what you pray for. She said, because it might come true. All my life I prayed to talk. Now they can't shut me up.
Now it's coming true. Yeah, I can't imagine those inmates, because I've been to Cook County too, and I've been in the women's division and have done some sharing there. I can't.
You got to go over there. You got to go over there.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean,
I can't imagine them sitting there listening to you and not being moved by this story. And now you need to correct me, because I'm not as savvy with the NBA as I'd like to be. Although I know when the Bulls were high, boy, I'll tell you, I was watching every single game. But aren't you like even a higher scorer than Michael Jordan?
Well, I used to be. I was the all-time leading scorer in my record. My record stood for 18 years.
Okay.
10 years. It took the greatest guy of them all to break it, so that's an honor.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there, because if there's someone that's watching that doesn't know you, I want them to know that this man that's talking is somebody, like you said, all pro and this and that and done it all. I want them to really know who you are, and of course a lot of folks know who Michael Jordan is. So, well, let's talk a little bit to Dickey, and then we'll come back to Bob too. But
I can sit here and listen. I mean, this is great right here.
Well, and Bob, you can jump in too. But
I want to hear this.
Yeah, but Dickey, tell us. I love this. It's sort of like generational. We've got like the pioneer, and now we've got Dickey here. And Dickey, you're a man of God. And I saw a little clip on YouTube that I thought was really intriguing and moving with regarding your son and the importance of mentoring your son. But tell us a little bit about who Dickey is outside of the court and your life story.
Dickey is a guy who's been very blessed, and I've been blessed because I've had the opportunity to have what I think the best role model ever in life. And I say that because that role model showed me and prepared me and gave me opportunities to help mold me into the man that I am now, to help give back to kids and give back to anyone who seeks the experiences and the knowledge that I've been able to have. That role model, fed everything that they learned from their parents, their father being a pastor, their mother being the backbone of the family, to help the father who was a pastor get along and pass all that down to me, you know. And and you get older, you get wiser, they say. And I look back on all the little things at the time I was young that are very important in life. You know, the going to church, the taking time out at night to read the Bible. You know, when you're young, you try to figure out, you know, why do we have to do these things? But that role model, I got a chance to see that role model go through a lot of challenges, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of difficult times. And that role model, when I saw that person go through all these things, they were doing it by themselves. At least I thought they were. And every time I'd see that role model go through a challenge or difficult times with managing to build a family and what they had, I always wondered what made them get through that next step. Until one day I said, how did you make this happen? How did you know, keep the lights on? How did you bring the food to the table? How did you know, how were you able to get the car fixed and all those type of things? And the role model said, by the grace of God, you know. And when you hear that over and over again, and when you have a role model that teaches you that at a young age, the grace of God, reading the Bible, going to church, and God being the only one that's going to be able to help you through the toughest and roughest times of life, you know, it's like anything. You develop a habit. You get that over and over again, and it's instilled in you. And I've been blessed to have that. And, you know, every time I go somewhere, and I'm sure Bob Love gets asked the question, and who was your role model growing up? You know, and I ask the question to kids, and of course they say Michael Jordan, and now it's LeBron James. It's the younger generation now. And I say, and the question gets asked to me, and I say, I had the best role model in the world, and that was my mother. My mother was my role model. And to see the strength that she had to overcome the challenges of raising a family, you know, raising me and my brother, 2 boys by herself, was amazing. You know, the things she did, you know, the magic and the miracles she made happen. And I always would ask her as a young kid, how were you able to do that? And it was by the grace of God. And that just grew in me. And so as I got older, you know, and I went off to college, my mother said, find a church home. Find a church home.
Me too.
And you know, you say, yeah, okay, mom, I'm going to do that. And when I got to college, you know what's funny? A church home found me. A church home found me.
Yeah, that's great.
A church home found me, and it was a guy named Floyd Narcisse, who I still communicate with, who got me out to his church. And you know, and I went. He had been asking me to go to church, go to his church, but I was so tired. I was a freshman. We were practicing all the time, and it was so difficult to do anything. And then one day I went to church early in the morning, and from that day I went to church. That was my church home. That was my church home. And the same thing happened when I came to Chicago. And you know, I get that call, bling, bling. Have you found your church home yet? And once again, you know, it's interesting how when you make transitions, you're trying to get everything adjusted. But once again, that church home found me.
Yes.
And so my wife at the time was the girl that I was dating, brought me to her church.
Okay.
And so I made that my church home. And so I was blessed to get that taught to me early.
That's right.
And to continue to carry it on. And it was by the role model of my mother. And just seeing it.
Dickey, before you go further, let me ask you, you said everyone always asks, and Bob, you could chime in on this too, who was your role model? Why do you think that that's such an important question? And why do people ask that question?
Well,
Well, it's important because because you have to have someone. You have to have someone that's doing something positive. Whether it's your coach, your grandmother, or cousin, or your uncle, and if they're doing something positive, you want to do something positive. But nowadays, the role model has really reverses the trend because the young kids now, a lot of them, as Dickey said, they don't have a church home, but their parents didn't bring them up in the church. You have to bring a kid up in church when he's little, and then it becomes a habit. You know, it becomes a habit of going to church. Nowadays, they get all these young men who they see are great football players, the Pac-Man Jones and all those guys, and kids are like themselves. See, those guys aren't your role models. Those guys aren't your role model. When I go into the schools every day now, I tell the students this. I say the role models in your life should be your parents and school teachers, because school teachers produce more professionals than anybody in the world. Had it not been for school teachers, never would have been guys like me and Dickey and Michael and all those guys. So if our young kids want to emulate someone, the parents and school teachers, those are the people who love them. Those are the people who are going to fashion their lives. And players, like I said, these young kids look at players driving all these Mercedes and these Bentleys, and they dressing really sharp, and they want to do that, but they don't realize that those players only got there, as Dickey said, by the grace of God.
Yes.
Because sports is the best guy don't make it all the time.
Yes,
When I was at Southern University my freshman year, man, they had some guys come down from Chicago. Oh, between their legs, behind their back, man, they could do all this. But every Sunday morning, I was the only guy who got up, put my little white shirt on, went to church. But those other guys were asleep. Then, after a while, things started changing. These guys flunked out of school. They didn't have anything to fall back on and stuff. You know, they were just out in the wilderness.
Yes.
You know, they thought that basketball was going to get them, from this point to that point. But sports is basketball. We were lucky. We were lucky and stuff. You know, I always tell kids that you got to be lucky, because the best guy do not make it. And the skills that we have, we only possess those skills for a certain number of years, and after a while, Dick, as you so well know, those skills vanish.
They start diminishing.
Those skills vanish, and those young boys come up. The young boys with the young legs come up, and you have to have something to do. But I'm so happy that I was brought up in the church. Because just made me a better person, made me a better man and stuff. You know,
absolutely.
I wouldn't trade for nothing in the world. You know, I hated to go sometime I was being in church late at night down south there, boy, you trying to doze off, you had to go to school the next day. And all of a sudden, one of these ladies would jump up and start shouting, "Oh, hallelujah!" And they'd stomp your feet. Boy, your grandmother, wake up, brother, wake up, wake up. It would scare you to death, you know.
Yeah. But praise
those
God.
are good memories,
yes,
though.
for
Those are
that
good
experience.
memories.
Yeah. Dickey, thoughts?
I know, like Bob said, the role models now have definitely changed with the new generation, and you know, with how things are evolving for the future. You know, I think one thing is difficult when now a lot of kids, their role models are usually athletes or people, actors,
rappers,
music people, and what I see is now that things are changing in a new generation, it's a younger generation. So you have a kid who's 10 years old, and their role model, like a Derrick Rose who just drafted, is 19 years old.
Under 19.
Right.
And so your role model
Right.
hasn't really experienced
That's right.
that many things in life.
That's right.
And so if that's your role model, you know, you're going off of his experiences, and his experiences are with the young generation.
Yes, yes.
Again, I was blessed because my mother was my role model, and I was able to, like Bob said, not necessarily the best players make it to the NBA.
Yes, yes.
And believe me, if you go far in professional sports or anything, there are going to be a lot of ups, there are going to be a lot of downs. But because my role model, my mother, was a strong person and a strong person spiritually, that didn't mean that we went to church every Sunday. But if we didn't go to church, my mother said, we're going to turn on church service on the TV, and you can't go outside until after church service is over. So one way or another,
You were going to get church.
I was getting church, and it was going to be instilled in my mind. And see, that's the good thing, because, you know, my role model had been through everything, and said, here, I'm going to show you the way. And the way is, when times get tough, it doesn't matter who comes across your path
Yes.
and tells you this or tells you that you have to grab that Bible, you have to pray, you have to have a relationship with God. And so, you know, my mother always tells this story, because I had a babysitter. And at the time, I thought this babysitter was the meanest lady in the world.
She probably was.
I thought she was the meanest lady in the world. And every Wednesday, we would go to church, a service in the morning time. We would ride about 5 different buses in Washington, D.C., and we would get to this church. And one day we went, and the babysitter told my mother what happened. One day we went, and at the end of the church service in the morning, they would pray. And she tells my mother the story. She said, yeah, we went. I think I was about maybe 7 years old, 8 at the most. And all of a sudden, everybody's praying, and then all of a sudden, I started praying. And at the time, obviously, I didn't know what came of me, but the Spirit. And so I started praying.
Wow.
And I said this prayer, and I know that the ladies in there probably, you know, winked one eye open, like, is that the little boy in the back praying? But it's funny how, because my mother instilled it, because you can't go outside until church service is over, you know, it grew in me. And so when I went places, if it wasn't the first thing I did, it was the next thing I did, or it came to me, and I found a church home. And the funny thing is, I got drafted because of the hard work and everything I did and learned, and I got drafted because God guided me through the tough times. And so they have chapel in the NBA. And Reverend Souls was the chaplain here for the Bulls.
He was on our program too. Yes,
And
Henry.
as a
right?
rookie, I think my first couple of games, he would come in there and say, hey, we're having chapel. And I didn't go probably the first month of the season. And there's always that time where you struggle, and you learn that, you know, through good times you pray, through the struggle you pray.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And you know, I prayed and thanked God for getting me to the NBA, and with the struggling time, you know, I prayed to get me in through those tough times. But Reverend Souls, every time we'd have game in chapel, I would go to chapel. And then when you go play other teams, they have chapel also. And so again, it all was uprooted from when I was a little kid, and my role model was old enough that they had been through a lot of things to show me the way. So today's role model, I think, a lot of times are too young.
Yeah. And so would you say chapel is one of the ways that
And the church,
helped you to maintain your faith while you were in the limelight? Because I could imagine being in the limelight too, when things are up especially, that there could be that tendency to sort of hang out with the guys. You know, we hear the stories, we hear the different things that go on, whether it's the NBA or the NFL or whatever. Is that one of the ways, or what were some of the other ways that helped you to maintain your faith in the limelight?
Well, when I was playing, we didn't have chaperone. Didn't have
Okay.
chaperone. You had to do it on your own, on and stuff. And Barbara, if you notice, all of those guys that you hear about that's getting in all this trouble, these drugs, and these
Yes,
fights, and doing this, they don't have the Lord in their life. They don't go to church. They don't get down on their knees and pray. Because if they did, they would have a different attitude about it. They would have other thoughts in their mind. Dickey said something that brought back to memories that I almost forgotten. You know, Barbara, all of my life I stuttered really bad as a little boy. And as a little boy, we had to go to prayer meeting. They had they would have something down south called revival and stuff. You know, the preacher would preach and try to get you to join church.
Right.
One night I was about 8 or 9 years old. Couldn't say one single word. The preacher called on me to pray. You know, Barbara, I prayed, didn't stutter one lick. And now, as I go out and speak, a lot of times I have no idea what I'm going to say. But I got faith in the Lord, that the Lord would put words in my mouth. The Lord will not put us in a situation
That's right.
that we cannot handle. And I truly believe that. I had no idea what I was going to say I got on this program today. But the Lord,
He knew.
but the Lord has guided my tongue. In one prayer I always pray, I ask the Lord to guide my tongue while I speak today,
Yes.
guide my feet while I run this race, because I don't want to run this race alone.
Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I was thinking, Dickey, when you were talking, I was thinking about a couple of scriptures when you talked about how you were raised, and of course you too, Bob, where the scripture says if you raise up a child in the instruction of the Lord, and that even though there are those times where we might, and some of us never do, but there might be those times where a child goes back or whatever, that they're always going to come back to the faith, to the truth. And then I thought about another scripture when you were talking about this 19-year-old role model, the scripture that says the older shall teach the younger. And by older, we don't necessarily mean only age, but we mean someone who's seasoned, someone like you said, who's been through some of the trials and the experiences. And I'm always telling young people, because I work with young people quite a bit, and I'm always telling them, don't go to your peers for answers, because right now a lot of our young people go to their peers before they go to their parents. They go to their friends, they go to their peers, they don't go to pastors, they don't go to adults. And I tell them, those young people are not going to be able to help you because they have very limited experience.
They don't know.
They don't know. And so when you said that triggered that thought. And my understanding is that you work a lot with high school kids. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And talk about that mentoring role, and talk about what you see. I mean, and Bob, you've worked with inmates and probably around young people too, but what are some of the things that you see, and why do you have a passion for that mentoring piece? And how does that mentoring piece work? I mean, we probably have about 8 minutes left, believe it or not. So.
I mentor kids. I mean, believe it or not, whenever you're talking to a child or a kid and you're sharing your experiences, or you're advising them, or you're giving them some information, for me, that's mentoring. That's giving them some guidance that's going to help them in their life. I mentor our basketball athletes all the time in a practice, when we travel, when we're out of town, before games. All the time is mentoring. And it's just to take my experiences, my knowledge of what's going to happen, because I've been through every step that they want to go through to get to the ultimate goal, and giving them the guidance and the knowledge so they'll understand and hopefully won't make any mistakes getting there, but if they do, they know how to correct them. Mentoring is a key. I mean, it's big.
Yes.
To have that role model, to have that person who can guide you and give you that fruit to help you get through your experiences, the experiences you're going to face is a great thing. And again, like I said, my role model was my mother, and my mother mentored me. You know,
Yes.
she guided me, showed me. And again, I sit here and say, you know, we talk about if you can get that fruit early.
Yes.
You know,
That's
my
right.
mother,
That's right.
Yes.
my mother praying, my mother showing me the strength she had. When I'm traveling, my mother talking to me on the phone and say, "Hey, we need to pray," and she says a prayer. Was it every time? No, it wasn't every time, but it was enough times over the
Yes.
course of my life that was instilled in me that when I'm on my own, pick up a Bible, go on your knees and pray, ask God for the guidance. And, you know, there are things that stick out. When I was going to church with my mother, I always saw this family that came in, a beautiful family that was always dressed alike. And the son looked like the father and the daughter looked like the mother, and they were dressed alike. That picture always stuck out to me. And you know the funny thing is, I have a beautiful wife who is a Christian and keeps us intact from a spiritual standpoint. And I always said that I want to have a family and I want to be in my family's life and in my kids' life longer than, you know, my father was in my life. And we go to church and the people say my son looks like me and my daughter looks like my wife. And you said you saw that video, and I mentor my son, I mentor my daughter.
Yes.
And mentoring to me is giving that fruit, that information, that knowledge of your experiences across the board, spiritually,
Absolutely.
athletically, education, everything. And if you can have the right role model, the right mentor that can give you that over time, they say a habit. You know, somebody told me the other day a habit is when you do something or hear something over 15 or 17 times, it instills in you. So I'm always mentoring.
Yeah.
I know Bob is, and
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the scripture
what-
too says, if you delight in the Lord, that He'll give you the desires of your heart. And so it seems like that's happened with both of you.
Yeah.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I want you
Okay.
to go ahead and share, Bob, what's on your heart. And then,
okay.
if you could also maybe tell us what you're both doing right now. And then we'll
Okay.
close with a word of prayer.
Well, over a year's time, Barbara, I speak to over 250,000 young people all across the country. I'm in the high schools, the colleges, junior colleges, whatever, whatever. And I go in and I always give the kids food for thought. Food for thought. Said, today, young people, I'm going to fill you up. I'm going to start at your feet. I'm going to rise up to the top here. Food for thought. Number one, 3 things in our lives that we will never be able to change. Number one is the spoken word. Once you say something mean about a person, all your friends going to laugh, and it's funny, hurt that person's feeling. You may say, well, I'm sorry, but that person is never going to forget that. And as grown-ups, we read in the paper every day, 15-year-old kids in these schools shooting each other. And I always tell them, if you're thinking about doing something bad, you better think about it, because they're going to keep you in a little box 23 hours a day for the rest of your life. And that is the speed of the bullet. Once that trigger's pulled on a gun, you'll not be able to reach out, change the direction of that bullet. And number 3 is missed opportunities. You must be prepared to take advantage of the opportunity that comes your way. And the only way that you can do that is by getting your education. Staying in school, getting your education. Once you get it, you never have to say, they won't let me do this, or they won't let me do that. Another opportunity is going to come along, but it won't be the same.
Yes.
Food for thought.
Yes.
In our young people's lifetime, they will earn the average salary of their 4 closest friends. It's a written statement. And I always say, if it's not written, young people, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. You will earn the average salary of your 4 closest friends. And I use this example. Football player, I don't know if I should mention his name or not, but I will. Michael Vick played quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, had a contract worth $150 million. Enough money to take care of all of us and the grandchild the rest of our life. But he had 4 friends who dropped out of school. They was jealous of him. They got him involved in dog fighting. 4 friends got caught, went to jail. They told on Michael Vick. And now today the 4 friends are earning what? 0. Michael Vick had $150 million and other millions. Today he's earning 0.
Wow.
So in our lifetime,
Wow.
You will earn the average salary of your 4 closest friends. So when your parents tell you, don't hang out with that group, don't hang out with that person, they don't mean you no good. You better listen because
Wow.
because your parents know. Today I'm Director of Community Affairs for the 6-time World Champions Chicago Bulls, and let me tell you, I'm having the best times of my life.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world, Barbara. This is just fantastic.
Wow. That's awesome. And right now, Dickey?
I would just say, I always say to kids, young adults, it's never too cool to pray. It's never too cool to get an education. You're never too cool. I mean, everybody wants to be cool. Everybody wants to be cool. It's cool to have a Bible. It's cool to go to church. It's cool to get an education. Never be too cool to block out those things in your life. And that's one of the main things. This cool aspect of life with the younger generation, it gets out of
Yes.
control.
Yeah.
Right now, I do ESPN TV analyst for college basketball. I did that this year. It was my first year coming on doing it. And I also have a skill development company, basketball skill training company called NLP, Next Level Performance. And we train athletes in all ages, position skills training, and we have AAU travel teams, and so we're doing a variety of those things. We have the mentoring, the sports nutrition, all those things are involved in our program.
That's awesome.
So those are the two things.
All right,
that I
that's
do.
awesome. Okay, we've got about 30 seconds. Bob, that's the camera. I want you to, if you grab a hold of Dickey's hands, pray for folks that are watching, salvation, whatever you feel on your heart, okay? You do that?
Well, I would just like to pray that each of us here today have a wonderful day. Tomorrow we've had a wonderful day today to bless our families,
Yes.
to bless the whole world, keep us safe and strong from all hurt, harm, and evil, and give us strength to help our young people around the country to see the way, to give them guidance and to help them to grow into nice, strong, healthy young men and women.
Come into your life, you shall receive power from on high. You will never be ashamed to proclaim my Jesus' name. You'll tell everyone you meet, he's the one who's keeping me. Talking about the Holy Ghost is the power that gives new life, delivered from sin and strife. He's keeping me day by day. The Spirit to whom we pray. You should know, ain't nothing like this but this. Nothing. Won't you let the Holy Ghost abide in you today, to lead you, guide you, keep you, and let your life have His way. Just confess your sins to Him.